Hopefulness, day 6. So, evidently, Punxsutawney Phil decided that we're gonna have 6 more weeks summer or winter, whatever. Not that that matters really. It's just it's so weird that we have such a tradition of superstition. So much so that even I talk about it and like I'm not a superstitious person really. Like I have a touch of it, but I mean I grew up with superstition. Yeah, like that's why the whole Friday the 13th thing with my tattoos, they're all Friday the 13th tattoos. But like and this right here, this symbol that is not fully filled in, I mean, I literally looked for something called, it was like a sign of bad luck or a symbol of bad luck. That's what I Googled for it. Because I always felt like I always had bad luck. In one way or another. And that's why, like, I gravitated towards Friday the 13th. At least that's my logic behind it. But, like, what does a groundhog have anything to do with anything? I mean, so he sees his shadow and then runs away. And, like, seriously, what the hell? How does it have anything to do with anything? Like, there's no causal link. Now, the one thing that I found funny, and I wish it had been Punxsutawney himself, but it apparently wasn't. There was another groundhog somewhere else, and this is also another thing. It's why is it one specific groundhog? And then when that, so there was another groundhog somewhere else that died, and then somebody was like, "Oh, that's just peak millennial behavior. So sick of everything, dies instead of goes to work." So I'm like, yeah, I get you on that one. I'd rather die than go to work most of the time. I'm already halfway done with all my butter that I bought just the other day, but that's the way it do sometimes. They don't think it is. They don't think it be like it is, but it do. Something like I can't remember. It's such an old ass meme, and it's not even that old, which is the funny part. But yep. Some groundhog somewhere else died. We still have a tradition of. That's why I had that. We still have a tradition of superstition. This rhymes and it sounds good, but not just that, of course. It's Thursday. No Claire Saffit's video really, other than just a short that's associated with an older video, which kind of sucks. But there will probably be an Adam Ragusa video, I hope. Something to watch. The hell did I do yesterday? I don't even remember. I really don't remember. I got the paperwork from lady who runs this place. It's just kind of like a basic application. As far as I understand, it's just for info, because, and I guess for legitimacy. It's asking on there like employment. I'm like, well, I'm not employed, so. Oh, but yeah, we'll just gotta figure some shit out. I got my first rejection from an employer. Speaking of employment. Yesterday. It was the place for the manufacturing it was a customer service job related to manufacturing company or something. But I don't know. I mean, I highly doubt that I will get any job anywhere. At least anything that's gonna pay me. of any kind of reasonable amount, which sucks because it's like, how the hell am I supposed to afford to live anywhere if I can't afford to live anywhere? Like, if I can't afford to go to work, what is the point of going to work? You know? It's a conundrum. It's like, the only reason I was able to make it work at my last job was because I was, while I wasn't making a lot, I had free bus travel because of school. Well, I say free. It wasn't exactly free. It was like $80 for like 4 or 5 months, something like that. But it was like $80 instead of, potentially hundreds of dollars. So that was like a day and a half's worth of work to pay for my transportation needs for 4 to 5 months. That's a no-brainer. And then I was living in a place and I was only paying $400 a month. And then at the time, also because I was going to school, and because I was going to school and work, and because both of them had really good internet, I didn't really need internet at home for the most part, because I would just spend my time either at work or at school, and most of my time spent at home was just kind of dicking around. See, I'd be at school or I'd be at work, and if there was anything that I wanted to watch that would be internet related, then I would just download it, and then I'd watch it at home. And so my phone bill was like $17 because I was using Ting at the time. Because it was like just enough data for everything that I needed without it cost. Because it was like $6. It was like $6 to start, and then it was like $3 extra for like the basic text, and it was like smaller packages of pay as you use kind of thing. So like the first tier of text was like $3, and the same thing with data, and the same thing with calls. And I think it was like the first 100 messages was $3, the first 100 minutes was $3, and then like the first 100 megabytes I think was $3 as well. And so since I rarely used text for things, that $3 would come in every now and then. Sometimes it wouldn't. I almost never made phone calls, and it would only charge you if you used them that time or in that month. And so like there would be months where the only thing that was charged for that I was getting charged for was data, because I didn't have phone calls or texts with anybody. I just had usually like Facebook communications with people, and then that was it. And almost everywhere I went had some kind of Wi-Fi somewhere. I mean, I would also try to make sure that like wherever I went had Wi-Fi. Like there was this cafe down the street from where I was living, back when I was still living in the sober living, and it was in between school and home, so there would be days where, and it was not even really like worth a bus ride, to be honest, traveling down there. So like I would walk to that cafe and then chill out there because they had good Wi-Fi too. And so I didn't really need Wi-Fi for the phone. I didn't have a need for a phone with any kind of internet for any kind of period of time. And then, and even when I moved over into the last place I was living at, while I wasn't going to that spot that much, especially because I was, working. Because okay, so before I got the job at iHeart, I did have a job at. So okay, if we just count the period, I mean, hell, fuck. So while I was homeless, when I got my first check from the school for the Pell Grant, that was when I switched to. That was when I actually got, because I had like a prepaid phone back when I was still homeless on the streets, and then I had my old smartphone that I used whenever I was near Wi-Fi for all the other communications needs that I needed. And then if I absolutely needed to use a computer for any reason, since my last one had been stolen a couple of months after I got here, it was stolen in my backpack with everything else. I didn't have like any real phone plan. Okay. And so once I started the application process to go to PCC, I was gonna get water. Water. I waited. I had already saved up a little bit of cash. I didn't have a whole lot, but I saved up a bit, and I was like, okay, the timing on this should work out where if I get this phone, I get this plan, I'll have good internet, I won't have to go to the X, Y, or Z, whatever. And even though I was going to be going to school and getting internet, it was going to be more useful to have the internet that I needed. Especially because, like, they started pushing us out more and more out of the Famima, the cafe that I would spend a lot of time at in downtown. So, like, there'd be days where they would just kick us out at, like, 6. That was like an hour after the library closed. So like on some days, I would go to the library, I'd stay there as long as I could, and then I would go to the Famima, stay there until they closed, and then I would go to bed. That's how I spent my days when I was homeless for the most part. Now, and then with the library, they had like an option where you'd use the computers, and you had like I think a 2-hour window total, something like that, to use the computer lab. But you could break it up into pieces if you wanted. And so like if you wanted a 2-hour window, you could book like an hour one, and then once that was booked, you could check to see if there was another hour to book. And if it was free, boom. Sometimes you had to switch computers though. Sometimes you could stay on the same computer depending on how it was set up. How all the various appointments and everything had been made. But it would shut down the computer after that period, and then you had to wait for it to reboot. So you didn't get a full period of time that you wanted. And they did something like that at PCC too. Now that I think about it, I used to spend a lot of time in the... So once I got admitted to the school and I would have like, credentials and stuff, I would spend most of my time at PCC, especially on the days that I was going to class. And then there would be days where I would just get up, do my thing, and then I would just go to PCC and stay on campus pretty much all day, because there was a Jack in the Box across the street that took food stamps. And let's see what else. I mean, there's a McDonald's down the street. There's a Carl's Jr. So if any of them had like any good deals, I'd be going to that place. Like Carl's Jr. occasionally, and especially during my time when I was still homeless, going to class. Not only was the Carl's Jr. across the street from the campus, but also the one that was off of the satellite school over by Rosemead. There was another Carl's Jr. over there. It wasn't just food stamps that I had. I also had cash that I would get from General Relief. And on top of it, I had the money from the funds from the Pell Grant. But also over at the Rosemead campus, there was what the hell was it called? I cannot for the life of me remember what it was called. But there was this grocery store, I think they pretty much died off, where it was all self-checkout. Like, that's what their store was. The only people who worked there were people who helped stock it. And I think it was there to help mitigate costs or something, I'm not sure, but man, I wish I could remember the name of that store. Because they're pretty decent prices for some stuff. But yeah, it was all self-checkout. And so like if I needed something from the store, that store was there on the days that I was going to the Rosemead campus. So I could buy, food stamp related stuff there. And then I could also go to the Food for Less. 99-cent store, sorry. That was down the street from the school campus as well. The main campus. So like there were options for everyday food stuff. And then if it was like I need something quick, generally one of the three places, like I said, the Carl's Jr., when I was still, during that like 6-month period when I was still homeless and I was going to school, and it was right before I stopped being homeless, the Carl's Jr. had like a 2 for $5 Big Carl. Fuck yeah. I mean, the Big Carl is a great sandwich as it is, but it's expensive on its own. But 2 for $5 is absurd. Like, that's stupidly good priced. So there'd be days that was like pretty much all I ate. It would be like I would maybe have some food in my backpack that I bought from the little quick shop store or whatever, but it wasn't a quick shop, it was a real ass grocery store. It was just self-checkout only, but so like one thing I would get is they had this really cool cereal. It was this granola cereal that I really liked, and it was like $4 for just big ass pound bag or something like that. I don't even know if it was I think it was cheaper than that. Whatever it was, like the price was good for the volume and everything. And I mean, it was a way to eat healthy, get some energy, get some protein, get all your macros, get your fats, proteins, carbs. Trail mix is what it is for a reason, because it has a combination of all your macros in it. And it's easy to store, and it travels well. Well, I was basically eating something along that line. And so I would have a bag of that in my backpack at all times. And then on some days I'd go and grab a banana or something. But like sometimes the Carl's Jr., like I said, that one nearby the Rosemead campus would have like breakfast deals where it was like $2 like for two whatever their muffin things were, like their version of the Egg McMuffin or whatever. I'm like, that's absurdly cheap. I mean, I made good use of a lot of good deals when it came to like fast food and stuff. And I mean, sometimes I would buy 4 and I would just have 2 and then bring some with me just so I had them. Because I mean, like, yeah, that grilled cheese sandwich was less than $1 to make, but I had to make it. I had to have the tools to make it, and it was technically more food than one of those biscuits. But at the same time, when you're homeless, $1 for something like that is actually a really good deal. And that's the thing. It's like, being homeless is expensive. People don't understand that. Being homeless was the most expensive time of my life. I mean, think about it. Just within the last couple of months, paying $2,200 a month just for Airbnbs. I mean, now I'm down $700 cheaper at $1,500 now here. But, you know, I already had to blow. I mean, if you think about it, so I had the two $2,200 months plus the $1,700 month. So if we factor in the difference, if I had paid $1,500 for those 3 months, that would have given me $1,600. So I'd be able to get March for free, basically. Or this month for free, I guess. So I'd be able to get to March and still be at roughly where I'm at, financially speaking, right now, 1 month. So having lost housing because of the death of the lady I was essentially subletting from put me in an expensive position. I had to pay to move shit. I had to pay to get the store to have storage. I had to pay to get a mailbox, and you had to pay to get a place over my head because all the other things require going through some goddamn loops, some goddamn hoops rather, that are just so out there that it's so difficult to get housing right now. And you know, she's been kind to me, which is nice. You know, and so I thank her for that. But at the same time, it's still too expensive. Which is why I still gotta keep looking for jobs, because I'm pretty limited in my time now. I swear I took a shower yesterday because I shaved and everything. I don't know why, but it feels like it's been 2 days. I don't know what the hell happened yesterday. I don't know what the hell happened last couple days. My brain does that to me sometimes. It's annoying. It's really frustrating. Sometimes I just forget stuff. And it's not just whether it's important or not, it's just the fact that, I mean, it just kind of happens. One thing I've considered, there's no genetics that I'm aware of when it comes to my family, but there's one thing that I've considered is like, I'm curious if ADHD will cause some kind of dementia, Alzheimer's. And depression as well, because both of those things will cause you to forget things. And I'm curious if there is like, I'm not even sure what kind of causal path I'm thinking of, but like, they both affect the memory as it is. I mean, sure, I can be depressed and I can have ADHD and I can be capable of memorizing lines from a play or what have you that I'm working on in some capacity or another. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the memory thing isn't still an issue. It is an issue. It's just different. It's just done differently. I don't know. I mean, I'll find out one way or another, I guess. But one thing, so I saw this image on Imgur earlier that was pretty eye-opening and interesting as well, is somebody had zoomed out on Google Maps to show traffic, and where all the traffic was in this giant swath between Texas and all the way up to like New York. Like there was a lot of this green, and then all of a sudden there's just all this orange and yellow and red, and it's associated with the winter storm. This was a really fascinating image. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like the fact that there is ancillary data that's associated with this winter storm that is sort of real-time, useful information, but like it tells you something that's happening. See, this is why we know about things like dark energy and dark matter. Okay, I know this seems like totally out of fucking blue, but ancillary data sometimes gives us information about something. Like, if we, for whatever reason, didn't have the weather data, but we had the traffic data instead, that traffic data, now granted, of course, this is correlative, but at least through the understanding of the data, you can create a strong correlation. That correlation does not equal causation, but sometimes it does. It depends on how strong the correlation is, especially if you cannot determine causation. But because of that, it gives you reason to look further into it. Well, see, we have enough ancillary correlative data to say, based on all of our understanding and models of the universe, it's behaving in a way that doesn't make sense. And the only way we've been able to make it make sense is by adding in certain other pieces of data that we don't have, but we experiment with the data. It's just like when somebody says, hey, what happened? I don't have any oil. I'll throw in some butter the next time I cook some cookies. And then their cookies change. It's experimentation. But they're going to experiment with data instead of, right there in your face, here's some stuff. And when they put in that new data, it makes sense. It matches. So when the data then matches your observations, and the only thing that's different is something that you cannot measure, that's where you get your dark energy and your dark matter. And those two things make up the majority of the makeup of the universe. So through previous other ancillary data and other things, and through observations, we're like, wait, hold on, something's causing this problem. So if we didn't have the weather data, if we didn't have satellites, if we didn't have anything, and we didn't even have people telling us about it, and all we had was just traffic information, we'd be like, what the hell is going on there? And then we had people start reporting on it in those regions. We'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Traffic is a big issue because of the snowstorms. That's what's really fascinating about just the scientific method in general, and how, and just these odd little things of data that sometimes pop up that you don't even think about. And it's like, we already know the snowstorms there, but like, it's interesting seeing the effect of it in a way that the average person would look at it and be like, oh, damn, that's kind of okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, just a thought. And I can't really think of anything else. I did sleep for a little bit yesterday too, now that I think about it. I just kind of laid down, took a little nappy nap for a bit, and then a ping on my computer woke me up at one point, went back to sleep. And then lady runs the place, she was knocking on the door. She's really light on it, and I'm like, I need to send her a text, or the next time I see her, because I gotta give her the paperwork. You can always text me before you knock, because I have a hard time hearing the knocks. I got fans blowing, I got video games going. Oh yeah, I did play quite a bit of Halo yesterday, now I think about it. Yeah, that's kind of what I did for a lot of it. Started playing on Halo Reach since the Master Chief Collection is like $16. I was like, well, let's go ahead and play it. And I like it. I mean, I can see why this game has such a, like, the Reach specifically, why Reach has good reviews. Because, like, so far, the story's really engaging. It's almost non-stop. Everything that's happening, the transitions between your action and cinematics are largely relatively smooth. I mean, sometimes it's just like, here's a cinematic, cut away, fade to black, going to something else. But then, like, sometimes it's like, okay, we're doing this thing. You're gonna be able to look around while we're flying to this place. And at one point, there was even a part where they're like, okay, you got to get up in it, and then they give you this gun turret on the side of the whatever it is, airplane Osprey type thing. This military transport vehicle. It's just blowing shit away, and it's like, all right, this is great. This is awesome. It's on rails, but it's still kind of awesome. And I mean, like, the game, although is relatively on rails, it doesn't feel like it's on rails. Because, waist-high fences aren't a thing, for the most part. And you can explore. And so, like, in all honesty, for a game that is largely on rails, it's done extremely well with regards to the capability of the player to be able to explore the region in which you've been dropped on. So, and I'll say the one thing that's most frustrating is I'll sometimes forget what the objective is. And, like, I gotta basically stand there for like a minute, and then it'll ping me and tell me what I gotta do. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm used to a little bit more hand-holding when it comes to certain games, especially first-person shooters like that. But, and part of it is too, because, like, okay, for instance, first-person shooter that has objectives and stuff. Deus Ex: Human Revolutions. Phenomenal game. Very RPG-esque. A lot of exploration that can be going on. There's a lot of side quests and stuff. Yet it somehow feels a little bit more on rails at times. But overall, not problematic. But you know what your objective is. You can even switch your objective. I mean, even in Witcher 1. And Witcher 1 is not as open world as I would like it to be. Of course, I know Witcher 3 is, like, stupidly open world. I have Witcher 3, I haven't downloaded it because I just don't have enough space for everything on the computer at the moment. But I know that Witcher 3 is, like, massively open world. It's super big. And, I mean, Witcher 1 in of itself is... I've barely gotten anywhere with it right now. It's kind of frustrating. But I'm really liking Halo Reach. It's apparently the prequel to the original Halo Combat Evolved, which is Halo 1. And so things are definitely going to change, like, visually and various other things, of course. Because I started playing a bit of it with the emulator that I was talking about yesterday. But then I didn't get there. I didn't get that far with it because I don't like using a gamepad for FPS. I don't like using a controller. I prefer having a mouse and keyboard. And I grew up on consoles, but FPS started mostly with Doom. And while I didn't have Doom, and I did play FPS games on console, I have always preferred playing any kind of FPS style game on mouse and keyboard. It's just easier for me to work. Because I mean, like, I'm using most of my hand instead of just my thumbs to move around. And while my thumbs being as dexterous as they are, because they're humans and that's what they do, it doesn't permit certain types of extra input. Like, I like to use my thumb to jump a lot, even though I feel like that's still kind of clunky. And like, sometimes I want to be running left and then go right, or you know, I'm going forward and I'm going left, and then I want to automatically switch to the other side. It's a lot easier for me to do that. And then, like, if I have to jump too, it's a lot easier for me to do that with the mouse and keyboard. But anyway, I might play a little more Halo today. Probably. It's a great game. I give no shits about any of the characters though. Like, they call out who I am every now and then, and I still forget. Like, that's how bad it is sometimes. I'm like, I don't care about these characters. I don't care about who I am. And I would say that's the weakest part. And that's probably mostly what it is. I mean, also, like, as far as I understand, at least from what I recall, I could be wrong, but I always thought that, like, Halo was basically your silent protagonist type thing, with Master Chief being the badass that he is. And I don't even know who this one dude is, and I was just like, why is he involved? Where's Master Chief? I guess I'll figure it out. But it's still really good. Like, for the sake of a game, and the sake of a first-person game, it's extremely good. Like, there's an FOV slider. Thank you, Total Biscuit, for just pushing that so fucking hard. The one thing that it does need that apparently they don't have, I was Googling this shit, but there is a significant lack of subtitles. When I play video games, I want to read what people are saying. I want to hear it too, but I want to read it. Because that's how games have been. That's how most games have been, in some capacity or another. And almost every game I've ever played has some kind of subtitles option. Now, they have subtitles, but it's only for the cinematics. Like, I want a little pop-up. I mean, we're talking about something that is 400 years in the future, 500. I keep thinking it's 2100 sometimes for some reason. So my brain does stupid shit like that. But we're talking about something that's 500 years in the future. You could think, with the nature of the heads-up technology that they have, that could be used, if you will, diegetically, which means that the information that is normally associated only with... Okay, so there's diegetic and non-diegetic. Typically music, but it can be other things. Music is generally the thing that they'll use, or some kind of voiceover, or what have you. So, like, when a narrator is narrating to you, the beginning of Lord of the Rings, when Galadriel's narrating to you, that is non-diegetic. That means that it is for you as the listener only. Okay? Now, music works really well because most music in most movies and TV show and films are non-diegetic. However, when a character is listening to music and you're hearing it, so like in The Boys, there's an episode, and I can't remember the name of the song, but it's a Billy Joel song. It's on season 2, and I can't remember his name, but fuck. And he played Boimler from Star Trek, Lower Decks, and I can't remember his damn name, Jack Quaid, but I can't remember his actual name in the character in the show. He's listening to some Billy Joel. You're also listening to Billy Joel. So that is, and you're listening to the same song. That is diegetic music. So with the technology that is associated with the heads-up displays and the like with these Spartans, you would think that the game creators could create a semblance of subtitles in some capacity, whatever, even if it's just for aesthetic purposes. But really, they need to put fucking subtitles in this damn thing, and they don't have any. It sucks. That's one of the biggest complaints I have. Because, I mean, sometimes you just don't know what the fuck they're saying. And, I mean, my hearing isn't bad. Like, I'm sure it's not as good as it was 10 years ago, but it's not bad. But it's really annoying. And I need to use the restroom. I don't have anything else to say. So I'm just going to say have fun.